Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu-alaikum. Ji ayanu, pakhera gale, ni hao, churushumme, washmale. Ohaya Gonzalez, Guten Morgen, Hola, Bonjour, Privyet, Kaifa hal? Hale Shuma Chatore, Ahlan Wasalan, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Suavi, Balli Kare Aya. Hosh Galden, and Ayo Sayo, Huya Mora Adab, and thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into PTV World. You're certainly watching World this morning. Alongside my very well learned colleague who happens to be Miss Haja Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Haja, how are you doing today?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for introducing me, Shahzad. So I was reading something very interesting it came upon, and it was related to the trees. So how trees are depicted in different cultures, and obviously nowadays they are a lot in the debate because of the climate change and whatnot. So I belong to Murray, and there's this tradition. So for example, the trees that are really, really old and that have really strong barks in the sense, and their roots are outside of the soil. So it is said about them that they house some sort of ghost, and there are a lot of creepy ghost stories around them. And there's this tradition. So in order to neutralize that, you have to burn a diya. I don't know what do you call diya in English.
Lantern?
No, not exactly lantern, but diya is something else, right? And that is how you neutralize the impact of those ghost stories around it. It was really interesting, you know, how people relate and how they have their own local wisdom to ward off all the evil sides and evil ghosts around. So that's very interesting.
And in addition to that, you know, I would want to add over here, because, you know, every time I go to a mountainous region or a hilly area, I think right after Maghrib, that's exactly what I think. I was like, yeah, I don't know whether if it is a haunted place or not. But having said that, you know, there was this wonderful thought which came to my mind. So imagine that, you know, because my second home is in England. So what happened is that, you know, while I'm in England, you know, at times at night, you know, it's really very quiet. You know, people over there aren't noisy, and we live somewhere which we call the countryside as well. So at times I'm thinking that, okay, if there was somebody out there, you know, maybe a jinn or anybody, will it be a Gora jinn if I'm in England? Because in Pakistan, we certainly do not think that it's going to be a Gora jinn or anybody else as well. But okay, having said that, this was a story too as well. But while you were talking about trees, Haja, I would want to say something, and that is that, you know, a tree actually teaches you a life lesson. So if you look at trees, you will see that they will have different branches. One branch will grow longer than the other one. The one will be shorter, one will be thicker. So imagine that's exactly how a family is, and a family who keeps its roots intact, I think that they're going to stay intact as well.
And it's a lot of allegory is given to the, you know, Shajara and Nasab, so how trees are associated with the families. And there was a very nice poetry lines of the Parveen Shakir that I came across, and I really wanted to read them. They're in the Urdu. So, कल रात को जो ईंधन के लिए कट के गिरा है, चिड़ियों को बहुत प्यार था इस बूढ़े शजर से. So how she has humanized the trees, and the trees are home to a lot of species, lot of flora and fauna, and we are not regarding them as another species, and we are degrading them, and we are slaughtering them out there, and we are not looking at the aspect that how we are not just destroying the tree, but we are also destroying the habitat of the birds out there who are living or habitating that tree.
Exactly, and we've done a lot of shows on that too as well. But obviously, ladies and gentlemen, it is our job to make sure that we create that awareness. But very quickly, before we actually move on towards our top stories, there's one simple thing which I wanted to convey to people out there, and I believe that, you know, it is very close to reality as well. So imagine that, you know, over here in life we have these different stratas, you know, so we have rich people, we have middle class people, we have people who are actually making sure that they can meet their ends, you know, towards the end of the month. So the only difference is that all of these three different categories have a different purpose of money. I mean, that's where you become poor, that's where you become rich, that's where you become middle class. So imagine that if you are to talk about people who are below poverty line, it is because of the fact that they work every single day to make sure that they are able to pay their bills. That's what their use of money is. The purpose of money for them is to pay their bills. Now, when we talk about the middle class people, people like us, what we do is, and it's really true, to get into an investment mindset, and that is that imagine, so what we do is, or probably what happens in the West is that they use a lot of credit cards. So what they do is that they use money to build their credit history so that they can get stuff which they cannot afford. All right, because, you know, kiston wala sara mamla hota hai, that okay, we will continue to pay no matter what happens. But when we come down to rich people, their purpose of money is not as I mentioned, the two of the above as well. So imagine their purpose of money is to make money so that we can make more money out of it. So even if they're going to get $100 bill, they're going to invest it somewhere which will at least give them $50 or $20 extra. So it is, ladies and gentlemen, the mindset or the purpose of money. So whatever purpose you have in your mind of using the money will make you either rich, poor, or middle class. So it's your time to make sure that every time you earn something, you invest a little out of it.
That's very true, and obviously mindful consumption of money, especially in a very capitalized society, should be a very priority for a lot of people out there.
True.
Moving on to
It's not that cold these days, right?
yeah, I mean, for quite a couple of days, I do feel that the level of the cold is shrinking. And now, and moving on to our top stories, which is about cold and dry weather is expected in most parts of the country, while cloudy in upper districts during the next 24 hours. However, rain, snow is likely in the upper Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Gilgit-Baltistan and Kashmir during the forecast period. According to Met Office, fog is likely to prevail over the plain areas of Punjab, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Upper Sindh. Met Office informed that a shallow westerly wave is present over northern parts of the country. Another westerly wave is likely to enter northern Balochistan tomorrow and likely to grip upper parts on Wednesday.
Wow. So it's going to be more cold?
Yeah, I mean, predictions are saying that it's going to be more cold, but I think we can feel it otherwise, right? We feel that the cold is decreasing, but we really don't know how the future plays out.
Exactly. But, just last night I actually felt really cold. So imagine that, I was busy with work and I couldn't have dinner.
Right.
So I was home at around 1:30 and I was still confused whether to order some food or not. So I ordered some food.
Yeah.
I'm glad that that rider came out at my place to, kind of
Right.
deliver it. So when I went outside, even though that I was wearing a thermal, I just couldn't stand there for even a minute. And I was like just rushing back in, going back out, rushing back in, going back out, because then the money, then the change and everything. And I was like, towards the end, I was to my guard, please, can you help me? Can you just get that box to me as well?
Right.
So it was colder, but at days, there are days when you feel differently. I think that's the case as well. But moving
Right.
on to the next one, where this news, ladies and gentlemen, happens to be one of my favorite, and
Right.
for all of those people who are out there who want to enjoy the winter season, please make sure that you head on to Gilgit-Baltistan as well, where a 3-day winter sports festival 2023 will begin in Skardu today. The main events of the festival include ice hockey, yake race, Indus off-road rally, rafting and mayfang. Lighting, food street will also be set up in which traditional foods will be displayed. The festival will conclude on Thursday with the final ice polo competition. Wow! I mean, God have mercy on all the horses which will be used. Even though that the horses are really fine with the cold, they're not fine with the hot or the summer.
That's very true, and I think Shandur polo was the very first polo that was introduced, but it's a very indigenous culture, and when British came here as a colonizer, they were very astounded as to how high in the roof of the world they're playing a game called polo, and it was introduced from here and popularized around the world.
And in addition to that, just across the border in Afghanistan, they play Buz Kushi. Have
Yeah,
you heard about
yeah,
Buz
yeah,
Kushi?
yeah,
Yes. So
yeah.
I think there's a similarity as well. Then people started playing polo on elephants.
True.
Then people started playing polo on, huge bicycles. And I was like, yeah, please don't mess up with the game. I mean, polo, ladies and gentlemen, is one of my favorite games. I've been playing it as well. And yeah, unfortunately, I cannot do it now, but I do miss it, because of some back injuries. But other than that, for all of those people who were looking forward to going somewhere and celebrating, enjoying and having fun, ladies and gentlemen, Gilgit-Baltistan or Skardu is the place to go. Please make sure that you go there. Now coming towards the most important news for today. Hajra, go ahead.
International community generously pledged further $2.2 billion for the relief and rehabilitation of Pakistan's flood victims so far. During the second session, Azerbaijan pledged $2 million, Saudi Arabia pledged $1 billion, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank pledges $1 billion to assist Pakistan in rehabilitation. In both the sessions, a total of $10.57 billion have been pledged till now for reconstruction and rehabilitation efforts in Pakistan.
And there's more in this report as well. Please go ahead, take a look, and once you guys will come back, we will certainly be talking about the international conference which took place in Geneva. Prime Minister Mia Shehbaz Sharif Saab co-chaired it as well, alongside Antonio Guterres as well. So please go ahead, take a look at the report, and once you come back, we'll speak about it.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and his team's efforts at international level for relief and rehabilitation of Pakistan's flood victims have come to fruition. The success resulted in the announcement of billions of dollars in aid. In a massively positive development, Chairman of the Islamic Development Bank, Mohammad Al-Jasir, pledged $4.2 billion for flood rehabilitation and reconstruction in Pakistan. In addition, the World Bank also committed $2 billion for the purpose, while US aid pledged $100 million. Moreover, Japan has committed $77 million and Germany committed 84 million euros. Asian Development Bank Vice President Shishin Chen stated that his organization will prioritize up to $1 billion. In a video message, French President Emmanuel Macron pledged $10 million in additional aid support. He also said that Paris was ready to support Pakistan in its talks with financial institutions as the country faces huge losses from recent floods. The United Kingdom, one of the first countries to respond to the disaster, is today allocating over £9 million from its Pakistan budget to help tackle the impact of the flooding, bringing the total it has now committed to the humanitarian response to £36 million. China will give $100 million for flood affectees. Pakistan's government aims to cover half that amount with domestic resources, including its development budget and through public-private partnerships. But it is looking to the international community to cover the remainder with the hope that the conference will generate significant pledges of support. Around 450 participants from some 40 countries have registered for the event, including representatives of the World Bank and several multilateral development banks. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has earlier announced a comprehensive framework document for flood recovery and rehabilitation of Pakistan. According to Pakistan's Resilient Recovery, Rehabilitation and Reconstruction Framework, which it presented during conference, $16.3 billion will be needed altogether. Reporting for PTV World, Alamdar Kazmi.
Obviously, that was a very comprehensive report, and for people to understand, I believe that, Kazmi Saab, you've done a wonderful job. But on top of that, I think that the leadership of Pakistan, alhamdulillah, has been on their toes, making sure that they're going to rebuild a better Pakistan. And that too, when we speak about it, Hajra,
Right.
certainly I think we're saying it out loud that we want Pakistan to be resilient against climate change as well. But having said that, let's take a good look at what happened. So imagine that with these floods, we have seen that almost more than 30.3 million people were displaced. We have had infrastructure losses.
33 million actually.
33 million, yeah.
Yeah.
So imagine that if we are talking about 33 million people, if we talk about the infrastructure losses over here that actually are going to cost up somewhat around $40 billion as well.
Right.
So imagine that to work and to build back better, I think that the entire nation needs to come together, not just the entire nation. We are glad that the people from the other world members are actually coming together as well. We are glad, we are thankful, but we're thankful to our leadership for making sure that they're going to hold such a conference where they're going to pledge for all of that money and that people will come together to make sure that we build back better.
An important thing is, as the news cycles moves on, because the floods came in last monsoon season and now it's to 2023, to make sure that there's enough attention on this topic and world doesn't go away and just skip out all of this attention. And in order to capitalize on that momentum, which we have seen is really coming in the wake of the climate change, because earlier on I used to see there was a lot of climate skepticism, but that has vanished away because people have literally feel the effects of that. In Pakistan, this is coming from a very personal tone. We have feel the effects of that. Like Shahzad mentioned, 33 million people are affected. 1 in the 7 person was affected because of these climate change, because of these flooding and because of these excessive overbloating. So in order to talk more about it, about how the loss and damage fund, which Pakistan has been very vociferously advocating, it should be made functional, and how we can utilize that money to make it more climate resilient, we have a wonderful guest in our studio who happens to be environmentalist, and he happens to be Dr. Ijaz Ahmed Saab. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me here.
Sir, it's always wonderful to actually be in conversation with such a well-learned person who you are. Alhamdulillah, very worthy guest for us too as well. And to speak about such a topic, I think it's really hard over here in Pakistan to find that pertinent person or personality who can actually speak about it. So thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. First of all, sir, as an environmentalist, how do you see this international conference taking place in Geneva, where our Prime Minister, Alhamdulillah, Shehbaz Sharif Saab was co-chairing it as well alongside Mr. Antonio Guterres? How do you think that the world coming together in such conference, because 450 more people actually kind of participated in it, making sure that they're going to help Pakistan in building better and building back better, in fact. How do you think that that was a great initiative of the government?
Well, I personally feel that this was a wonderful initiative in a sense that it was a joint effort by government of Pakistan as well as United Nations.
True.
So, which actually gives an advantage in a sense that something that we have been facing over a period of time is not only concern of Pakistan, but also concern of the global community now.
Okay.
And it was, I think, very difficult to make that realization, because most of the time when you talk about climate change and things related to climate change and the disasters that we have been going through, was not recognized at international level.
Okay.
People were, I think, considering this as some sort of local event or something, happening locally. But with the passage of time, the realization came when last year we had this heat wave in UK. And now, I think for last 2-3 weeks, the snowstorm in US. So these situations, I mean, like in different countries, have made them realized that this is a reality, and we need to face it, and we need to come up with certain solutions. If we don't come up with certain solution, they are going to suffer as well.
All right, so, and that's wonderful. So thank you very much. So what you're trying to say over here is that until and unless we didn't or they didn't go through it,
Exactly.
it was difficult for them to understand it. That's great. But sir, before I move on to how COP27 has actually led us to this point, what I would certainly want to ask you over here is that, for example, when we talk about rebuilding Pakistan, or making it climate resilient. What do you think we need to do? Because unfortunately, we will still be this vulnerable no matter what happens, whenever the weather changes. It can even happen today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. We're certainly not sure. And we haven't really seen this cold as well. So these are things that we have been experiencing. What do you think will be that image of climate resilient Pakistan?
Well, I think again, as we always say, that the climate is not a localized issue.
True.
Yeah.
So whatever we do, anything which we do, positive or negative, has impact. And similarly, our neighbors and their neighbors and their neighbors, if they do something, I mean, like whatever we are actually facing now is because of something which we did not do. I mean, like the carbon footprint, the emissions, the global emissions actually are responsible for all these disasters that is going on in the region. And Pakistan is, I mean, like the contribution, we have already been saying many times that the contribution of Pakistan is less than 1%
but
in the global emission.
The important point is that there is something extremely broken in this entire capitalist system, because you've said that obviously they have feel the effects of that, the snowstorm, the heat waves in America, in the Europe, around the world. But again, the important thing is for them is how to make money out of it, right? So if you say, okay, we need to plant more trees, that means that there is this assumption linked with that okay, that will hinder our economic progress and economic growth. And actually there were a lot of researches that have shown that how slaughtering of the trees was linked with the spike in the economic activity. But now in 21st century that has changed, because we have seen that without nature we cannot survive. So how can we fix that broken system of extreme consumerism, where they are producing so many material things? Obviously that has a vast carbon footprint out there. For example, you see every year we will see the new versions of mobile phones coming on. I mean, is there that much need out there? Is there want out there? And at the end of that, they want to earn the money, irrespective of the fact that there is a lot of degradation of the environment.
I think there is a need to have a big debate on that, because that is, I mean, like economic activities versus the nature.
True.
And we need to look into where do we compromise. The developed countries who have more technology are basically they are there to sell their technology, and we are facing the overall damage because we did not have any technology to cope with this kind of situation. Whether we, and then also I think another important point is various research studies which have shown the linkage of like if you deforest an area, if you remove all the trees in an area, what kind of impact is it is going to have
Yes,
on
yeah.
the biodiversity, on the ecology, on the overall economics. I mean, whether it's deteriorating the environment, whether it's deficiency in water recharge, environmental degradation,
Right.
at the cost of what? If you are actually not relating it with economic activity, the disaster will happen over time and time again. When we talk about trees,
Right.
forest, I mean, you started with the tree,
Yeah.
because people just consider tree as a fuel wood,
True.
or something they can get some fruit out of it.
True.
They don't consider that, I mean, like it is providing oxygen, it is taking out carbon dioxide, it is home to various species which are beneficial. I mean, like if you remove sparrows, you are basically creating problems for your crops, because you are destroying the nest of sparrow, which is ultimately eating insects which are harmful for your crops.
True.
So, there is a cycle, there is a linkage which is which we have we were unable to actually economize or unable to relate it with the
And sir, in addition to that, I would back it up, so for, so for better awareness of people, so imagine in Australia, there was this research, in rainforest where the fox actually went extinct.
Okay.
And when they went extinct, they see that the forest actually started to die itself, so the very ecology was actually dependent on each and every species which was living over there. Number one. Number two, we're talking about renewable energy resources. So people are moving on to electric cars.
Yes.
So it's not that the carbon emission is not there. The carbon emission is there, but we've taken it from the cars to where we are making batteries. So imagine to make a battery which can actually give you power of 1 barrel of oil, 30 barrels of oil are being consumed to make that battery and take out that minerals. So that is certainly happening. Having said that, sir, where my question was that, how do you think Pakistan can become climate resilient? Can we only bring in systems where we have better forecasting, where we alert people before it happens? Or do you think that people who've been living on the riverbanks, or people who've constructed where the construction shouldn't have been allowed, do you think that we can restructure that? How do you think Pakistan will become climate resilient?
Well,
That's the
I think
simple
that we need an integrated approach.
Okay.
We have to consider all these aspects, because as you mentioned, like constructing on riverbed is illegal.
True.
And we are doing this and we are supporting it. Government is promoting that.
True.
Somebody somewhere has taken something to give that signature onto that piece of paper.
I mean, like, there are examples that we are planning to develop cities on riverbeds.
True.
And there is a huge investment which is coming up, and it is being supported by the government, which actually are supposed to protect the law.
True.
And which is an illegal activity. So, I think these are some of the what we say we should do that. What we
But sir, it has started to happen now, because okay, so I'm not very 100% sure, but this gentleman who actually works at Hunza, he was traveling with me from Lahore to Islamabad, and he was creating a facility for people to go and travel. So he told me that, do you remember that hotel Luxus Grand, at the very bottom of that place where there's water? I don't know what do we call that place.
Okay.
So there was this other 5-star hotel which was being constructed over there. All of them have been
Atabad.
stopped. Yeah, the NOC has been taken away because now they cannot build it there. So I think that the government's trying to work over there. But one way or the other, sir, there can be an individual who then shows a little bit of flexibility when he sees a lot of Qaid-e-Azam. So I think that's what the problem is, and people really need to address it this way. So imagine, I think for the people who've had a lot of losses, for example, that hotel which fell down when the river came in, I think that gentleman, the same thing happened to him when 2010 floods came in.
Exactly.
And he built it over again. He's not going to build it again now. I think that's what the
if we
point is.
stop
People
him,
need to realize.
Yeah, but he is going to build if he is given an opportunity.
True.
The realization, I think, is very important, because they and then money which he earns is much more than what he is investing.
True, true.
So
the temptation is there.
Temptation is there, and then we need to stop through legal actions. I mean, like if we keep on like giving this leverage and then supporting that activity, there will be a mushrooming of such structures. So I think we need to look into the integrated approach, as you mentioned earlier, about whether it's the vehicles, whether it's about the carbon
Emissions.
We need to reduce our carbon footprint.
But sir, in addition to that, we really need to think about the well-being of the people. So imagine that if somebody's built a hotel on a riverbank, that's not what the problem is. The problem is that there was somebody within the provincial government or the regional government who actually allowed them to buy that land. Now, once they've actually made that investment, either the government really needs to give them another piece of land somewhere else and take that back. If that happens, I think that's all right, that's fair enough as well. But just telling people that you cannot construct over here if it was their land, I think that will be a very unfair
Yes, and
thing to say.
adding more to this conversation, Shahzad, so let's revert back to our own, problems that we have created in this fight against the climate change. So when we went to DI Khan, there's this system called Rot Kohi there, right? And it's a very indigenous solution to the water problem there, because the water channel is inside the river, and how they have been harvesting that water for quite some time. But what happened is that people started the agricultural fields in this in the area of that the Rot Kohi, and what happened was that the water channel was disturbed, and when the flooding came, so there was a lot of destruction, obstructions there. Water couldn't find its path, so that was a massive destruction out there. So I think nature-based solution, which was one of the focal point of the COP27, is that farmers need to be nature stewards, right? And how can we make sure that farmer has, because if you talk to farmers, although they might not be that much literate, but they can offer you so much indigenous knowledge, wisdom, that you are sometimes surprised at your own inability to grab the system, right? So how can we make sure that we add this element of climate resilience into their farming or agricultural methods?
I think if we see traditional farming system actually was included this whole scenario.
Kares,
But I wanted to give you example of kares, which is again another way to conserve water in an arid climate, where a lot of dissipation and evaporation actually happens. And the kares system is again practically, if you see, is one of the most productive water management system. It actually protects, it conserves water, and also the every drop is utilized, and people take benefit out of it. But then again, as you mentioned in Rot Kohi system, similarly these kareses have been destroyed. So ultimately, who is going to suffer? The same farmers.
True.
I think greed is another element which actually enhances.
It is the element.
Is the element.
Yeah.
There are two actually aspects. One is population growth, and other one is greed. So greed to increase the number of individuals in your family to have more productive hands, and then greed itself is financial or in economic term. So I think the indigenous practices are mostly very environmental friendly. People will not actually use the entire land for cultivation. They will keep some land, and then rotational systems where they plant or they sow crops in 1 year, and then next year they will just rotate, because it enhances the fertility, the organic component. Similarly, this in livestock grazing, this rotational grazing was a practice which was actually used in order to enhance the number of individuals. So I think the traditional practices are always very supportive. Yes, we need to actually look into the modern technologies and come up with a marriage of traditional technology, traditional knowledge, as well as the technology,
current technology,
to have a better win-win situation.
Wow, and that's exactly what we want. That's exactly what our leadership wants, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Dr. Ijaz Saab, for being with us.
Thank you.
Lovely to be in conversation with you, and for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, when we speak about building back better, I think climate resilient Pakistan, it's not just us. I think we really need to talk about our expat community over here who have contributed day in, day out, made sure that Pakistan can actually build back better. For all of those people who might have gone through a lot of losses and damages when we speak about lives, when we speak about livestock, when we speak about infrastructure, when we speak about their own household, their own chat as well. So I think with that, we really need to talk about whether how we can make it easier for people who live abroad to do something better for the country and for themselves for near future as well. We're heading out towards a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good morning.
Welcome back. And earlier on, we were talking about the climate change and how there is a need to do better for the people out there, for the public out there. And obviously, when we talk about doing better, there comes the role of the public policy into it, how public policies can be made to enhance the lifestyles of our common people, common masses. And one of the things that I find often in the lot of countries which were colonized was that the colonizers made a system that benefited the not the colonized people. Not the colonized people, but themselves actually,
Yes.
right? The system was still in their favor, not in the favor of the masses, because they were the slaves there, right? But we need to make sure that we decolonize that mindset and make sure that there's a system out there, public policies out there, and alhamdulillah, state has been doing really good. But in order to have a more conversation regarding that, how can we make even more public-friendly policies? We have a wonderful guest in our studio, and we were not just talking about the people who are living in Pakistan, but also the expat communities who are out there.
Exactly. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I think I'm going to introduce the most handsome advocate from Supreme Court, ladies and gentlemen. He happens to be Mr. Hafiz Hassan Ahmed Khokhar Sahab. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you?
Thank you so much, Shazad.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's
Thank you
always
so
wonderful
much.
to be in conversation
Always
with you.
honored and pleasure.
Always very dapper, good looking, and always using those right terminologies which obviously inspire people quite a lot as well. But sir, very quickly, you know, when we speak about Pakistan, I do know for sure that we are an over-legislated country.
True.
You know, so no matter how many times we're going to talk about public policy and that to interest in the interest of people, we will certainly never see that policy in reality. You know, so that's what the problem is. So first of all, have you identified that in which areas we certainly need to work quite a lot?
Shazad, the most important thing in the modern world is why the countries they are the developed and why they are the developing countries. This is the terminology used everywhere when you talk about the east or west. But the most important thing is the policy making.
Yes.
And what are the indicators for making a policy making for a developed countries and why they are failed in developing countries. So Pakistan has been a victim of the policy making process since 1947.
Okay.
You have already told that there is over legislation, but the legislation turns into the formulations of the policies.
Okay.
And these policies need to be activated in all areas, in the social sector, in the human sector, the governance sector, the justice sectors, they are there. And there are so many important areas as well where the country has made some progress on it. Most important thing is our justice sector, most important thing are the economy sectors, most important thing are the bureaucracy, most important thing is our the ease of doing business, the regulatory firm. These all areas which reflects the will or the intention of the government.
Okay.
Right.
And another area which is very important for to make a successful policy is that how it is interactive, how it has the ground reality, how it has the public participation, how we have allocated the resources, and how we are conceiving the ideas and the implementation mechanism. If we make a policy, then there should be an implementation mechanism. The results of these policies should be went to the people for them who make the policy.
So to give an example out there for all our viewers who are out there, do you see the share with us an example that there was this policy which was being introduced and then we see it in reality now as well? Can you give us a few examples so that we can take it further from there?
Yeah,
Right.
if we talk about in Pakistan,
Right.
we have in recent past, we have successful stories as well. Ji. We made a very good
Right.
policies on the COVID side, ji,
True.
and which is recognized by all over the world. And why it was successful? It was organized, it was planned, there was transparent, there was discipline on it, and it was acknowledged by not only in Pakistan but all over the world.
True.
Then we have a very good policy making process in the local site. In recent times, there was disaster in our rural areas in Pakistan, and then we made a setup and we made a very successful stories. And then we made a resolve at a state level and the government level for the FATF process in Pakistan.
We have exited FATF.
Yeah,
days,
yeah.
by
Now
the way.
we have come out from the grey list, which is another area where the government institution they have performed well. So there are as well other. We have a very good success stories in our highways in Pakistan. We made very good motorways. And in recent parts, the successful story is we made a motorway from Lahore to Multan.
From Karachi till Peshawar.
Till Karachi to Peshawar, there was some execution, but on the governance side, there are serious issues.
Okay.
And these serious issues have to be addressed at the top level by making a setup like we are doing in other areas, which we early talking about, the covert, the locust. So we should set up like a system we made in 2002, like the National Reconstruction Bureau, which was responsible, and they executed well the devolution plan in the country. We made two areas. One is for the local government system. We made the law and then we executed, and the people still are remembering that that was a good system. Another area was the police reforms that was taken in Police Order 2002. To some extent it was executed, but due to the oversight mechanism which we did not establish, like the Public Safety Commissions or the National Public Safety Commission.
And
So we are
Islamabad
lacking
Traffic
behind
Police,
it.
I believe, is an example too over
And
here.
motorway police,
Motorway police.
I think that's a very success
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
So let's pontificate on the public discourse, which is a very popular one, is that, like Shahzad mentioned, we are overly legislated country. We have the policies out there, but the implementation is not very much robust in that sense. And obviously you belong to the judicial fraternity, to the legal fraternity. Let's talk about a justice system a bit. And we have seen that there are a lot of cases that are not dispensed yet, and obviously there's a backlog of cases, and that is creating some hurdles in the dispensation of justice. So can you deliberate upon from the other regional countries how they solve this problem, this judicial problem, and especially in the dispensation of the justice, because it is said justice delayed is justice denied, right?
Yeah, there is two areas.
Right.
One area is this country, I mean, you can say it is an over legislated country,
Right.
but simultaneously it is a overlapping legislation in Pakistan. We made some legislation in a certain area, then we made another legislation, then there is a process, and ultimately your objective is gone.
And there's a precedence from a previous decision too.
As well by the courts and the Supreme Court. So in Pakistan we have two problems. One problem is that we are making a legislation on a substantive side while considering our ground problems, but while implementing side we have a system of the colonial system.
True.
We still have a system of 1898 criminal procedure code. We have a still system of civil procedure code of 1908. Now you have a good engine, but the body of that, if it is old, so you can't go swiftly on a motorway or the highway.
True.
So we need to put on all these areas and efforts by learning the process. We should minimize our procedural things, and we should focus on our substantive law, and simultaneously we should go for time bounded legislation, time bounded decisions, and more importantly using the information technology and the modern technology to cope all these areas on a page in a broader way, to have a criminal justice system and a civil justice system.
And what about some of the indigenous methods for the dispensation of the justice? For example, like Jirga system, a lot of people who say that, okay, maybe the courts have a lot of backlog of the cases, so the dispensation of justice is as not robust. So maybe in the Jirga it is very robust, but we have seen that how there is a total power capture of the elite in the Jirga system, and the justice has not been dispensed as it should be. So what is your opinion about that? How can we integrate those systems into our judicial system and make sure that there is a fair system out there?
We can divide into two areas.
Right.
One is Jirga related to a civil matters, and we
Right.
can call it, we have a alternate dispute resolution system in a modern world.
True.
So now there are certain legislation, and there are compulsion by the legislation
Right.
that these matters to be referred to the ADR.
True.
And the second area is the criminal justice system. So there is no concept of a Jirga in a criminal justice system. A person who commits a crime,
Right.
and the state is waiting on it, and they are saying that this is a Jirga, and the Jirga will decide. So it is not absolutely a perfect area on that thing. Why the people are preferring to the Jirgas? Because it is easy to approach,
Right.
easy to decide, and it is a time bounded. If
True.
we put these three areas in our regular system at the top level, the people will avoid from the Jirga system.
True, because it can go either way as well. But sir, in addition to that, I want to come down to where Pakistan, alhamdulillah, is a democratic country. When we speak of Islamic Republic of Pakistan, we speak of the elected members. may it be the National Assembly, may it be the Provincial Assembly as well. When we talk about a democratic country, the sole purpose or the first ever purpose of any government is to legislate. And while I was researching, I could see that, if we speak about PMLN or Pakistan People's Party, that they have been legislating whenever they've been in power. Unfortunately, the last government PTI wasn't really very helpful with legislation. The number was very lower as well. So when we talk about governments coming in power, the sole purpose is for them to legislate. Do you think that, previously all the governments who've been in power were able to legislate as much as PMLN or Pakistan People's Party?
If we start from 1947 up to the 2022 and now we are in 2023, the people have more expectations from these legislatures. The primarily responsibility of all the legislatures, whether they are at the national level or the provincial level, they have to make their efforts for the betterment of the citizens and for the society and to make a rule of law in the country. If while considering all these areas, there are certain legislations, but the results of these legislation have not been reached to the people of Pakistan. So this is the disappointment in the citizens towards the state and a disappointment towards the legislatures. We need to put our all efforts on it. And second, the most important area is that while we are sitting as a parliamentarian in either at the national level or a provincial level, we have to scrutinize the real and genuine problems of the people of Pakistan. The real and genuine problems of the people of Pakistan is there is a dysfunctional governance system in our country. We have outdated 1973 or 74 rules of business we are conducting on it. See, we have outdated criminal justice system, we have outdated the civil justice system, and we don't have any policy mechanism in Pakistan. If and what is the ground reality and what is the comparative status of Pakistan? If we talk about our country to another countries, if we go on the social index sector, in education sector, we are far behind, not only in our neighboring countries, but to elsewhere. As if we talk about our tax to DTP, it is lowest in the area.
Let's talk about the success story in the judicial system. Like you mentioned, the ADRs, the alternative dispute resolutions, and obviously they are very efficient in dispensing the justice, especially to the especially to the marginalized people out there who can't afford the lawyers, who can't afford going out in a very laborious process of court and kacharis and whatnot. So do you think if we can replicate that system in other matters too, just apart from the family dispute resolution?
Because to hire an advocate Supreme Court is really expensive these days.
Yeah, definitely. But to some extent, if we talk about the taxation, in every tax law, there is a provision of the ADR, but is not being implemented. We are talking about the Civil Procedure Code, which is the regulatory process of the courts. There is a provision, but it is not being implemented. See. And then if we talk about in other areas where there is certain legislation has been made by the parliament, but no ADR is there. What is the problem? The problem is that we have taken all these areas in a piecemeal. We have not made our efforts in a composite side. The composite side would be that this is our governance system, this should be our governance system, this should be our civil justice system, this should be our criminal justice system, and this should be our policy making process. If because we are focused on it, if we go on at one department, if you talk about this is your responsibility, he is saying this is not my responsibility, this is another responsibility, and then he move on, it is a provincial department responsibility. So there is no clear cut line of actions. And the second most important area is there is a lack of training among our top people who are over there, and might be they have some knowledge on it, but they don't have the expertise on it. And
or probably they do not have the guts to take those decisions which they are supposed to take while they are at that.
And that's why we are suffering. For the sake of argument, I'm mentioning because I've been the Grievance Commissioner. We have more than 10 million overseas Pakistanis, but we are unable to tap even a $1 billion as a foreign direct investment. So this is a big question mark for our policy making. We have 236 million populations, about 64% of our youth, but we are not utilizing these people. This is a question mark of our policy making.
It is a question mark, but thank you very much, Khoka Saab, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you, for highlighting all of these amazing points. And ladies and gentlemen, you cannot differ from them. or you cannot go away from them. But I believe that for Pakistan as a nation, as a country, I think, when we talk about one of the best ever governance systems, I think it's a part where self-actualization needs to come in part as well. Because, there's a dearth of basic necessities over here in the country. So the governance part actually comes in very later. There are so many other issues that we certainly will, inshallah, one day be there, once we start to talk, people like Hoka Sahib are here as well. And very quickly towards the end. And I've been saying it for a longer period of time that for all of those people who are at the helm of affairs, who are at the leadership positions in any institute, in any organization, please make sure that you do not save your job by not taking any decision. I think that's where the harm is. You really are in that leadership position so that you take decisions for the betterment of the organization, for the betterment of the country, rather than making sure that that you're not going to take that file to somebody to approve just because that your job unfortunately can actually be at harm. So please make sure to do that. And thank you very much, Hoka Sahib, once
you so
again.
much.
But very quickly, since we all have friends as well, one of my dearest friends' birthday is today as well. He's a dear guy, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most honest, amazing, helpful people in our workplace. His name is Malik Junaid Saab, Malik Junaid Khalid. So Malik Junaid Khalid, we're actually going to sing you a happy birthday song. So happy birthday to you. May you have many more. Happy birthday, dear Junaid Malik. Stay blessed, brother. And not just that, the best part is कि इनकी वालिदा की भी आज सालगिरह है, एक ही दिन, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह. तो माँ जी आपको भी सालगिरह बहुत बहुत मुबारक हो. और कोई भी दोस्त जो है वो अपने दोस्त को गिफ्ट देता है, तो अपनी इस सालगिरह के ऊपर जुनेद को मैं सिर्फ ये गिफ्ट देना चाहूँगा कि मैं आंटी से ये कहूँगा कि आंटी, मेरा जो इसके लिए पैगाम है वो आपने ध्यान करना है, वो ये है कि इसका एक दोस्त है चौधरी नमान, उससे बचाएं इसको प्लीज़. ये मेरा मैं ये तोहफा देना चाहता हूँ. बाकी आपको भी आपका बर्थडे बहुत मुबारक, जुनेद को भी बहुत मुबारक, और चौधरी तुम भी गुस्सा ना करना, ठीक है. थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर बीइंग विद अस. लवली टू बी इन कन्वर्सेशन विद यू. फॉर एवरीबॉडी who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure to write to us on our Facebook page, which is with the name of
World This Morning.
On Twitter.
World This Morning.
And on Daily Motion and YouTube.
World This Morning.
And the fabulous repeat is going to be at 1 in the morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please make sure to look after yourselves. Have a great day. 1, 2, 3.
Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.